In the early hours of the 20th of July 2008, a police helicopter flying close to Cardiff Airport in Wales has a near miss with a UFO. The 3 crew members report it, and the story ends there. But then the media get the story and try to make it something it isn't. Do UFO stories like this need embellishing to be interesting, or do they do a disservice to ufology by confusing the issues? Join myself and Neil here on Aliens Explored as we look into both the event and the reaction by the press. And this week's episode is brought to us thanks to our wonderful Patreon patrons, and in particular this week's Explorer of the Week, DEE NANDWANI. Now, if you would like to help support us just like Dee does, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Aliens Explored and pick a tier that suits you. We have all kinds of rewards and benefits for you if you do, so do take a look at that. Links are below. But thanks especially to this week's Explorer of the Week, DEE NANDWANI.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a skeptical perspective, whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? Hello listeners, and welcome back to Aliens Explored, your weekly look at the mysterious skies and the deep beyond and the smoke-filled rooms full of conspiracies and such like, and people who don't believe that there are smoke-filled rooms full of conspiracists. I'm one of your hosts, Neil Kelly.
And I'm your other host, trying to do a Welsh accent. I'm Stu Jackson. How you doing, Neil? Yaki da.
Well, you know, Yaki da. I would like to do a big shout out for anyone who's working in private medicine. Fuck you, you money grubbing parasitical fucking leeches. I hope that when your turn comes, that there'll be someone stood over you saying, "I'm sorry, but that's not covered by your insurance."
I've clearly missed something here.
My nose is out of joint today, mate. I'm laughing on the other side of my face.
I've clearly missed something. Something clearly political.
No, it's I've had a miserable trip to the dentist today.
Oh,
where they just looked at what I got. Oh, it's very complicated. Special. No, it's not covered by your program, so I've cancelled my program. But that was my wasted morning. Actually, I've been thinking of cancelling them for a long time. Partly because they used to be near where I lived and worked. And then I moved further away, but I was still working in the area. And then my work was further away, but my mum still lived in the area, so it would be a chance to drop in on her. And then they moved further away, a few miles, but not, well, a mile or two. And then they became this organisation called Love Teeth, and it all became very, very... Everyone looks like they've stepped off the set of The Only Way is Essex. And,
orange,
makeup with sort of Donald Trump shining white teeth and whatever. And then, but you know, as soon as you have a toothache or something, oh no, that's a bit specialised. I think, yeah, fuck you.
Well, the beep button is going to be having its work cut out in this episode.
Yeah. And then I came home and Janet said, would you like to play Yahtzee to relax? I said, yeah, okay. And I lost every single game. No matter how I did, I couldn't beat her.
That doesn't help.
So it's been a day of disappointment for me.
Is this your subtle way of saying that I've got to let you win this argument today? Is that where we're going with this?
That's where we're going. Again, this argument today, we're talking about back in 2008, a police helicopter having a near miss with an unidentified flying object of some kind.
Yes, in Wales, hence my attempt at a Welsh accent earlier.
Well, I saw a story about Wales. There also seems to have been one over Birmingham.
I mean,
around the same time.
Yes. I'm less less familiar with the Birmingham one than I am the Welsh one. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll look forward to hearing about the Birmingham one. So yeah, like you say, this is 2008. This is the 8th of June, 2008, at 0:40 hours. So 40 minutes past midnight in the morning.
40 minutes past midnight. So we're talking. It's going to be dark, isn't it?
It would be absolutely pitch black.
It's going to be that. How close were they to any kind of city and light pollution?
So this was above a place called St Athan in Wales. Now, St Athan itself does have an RAF base, and they were actually coming in. They were waiting to land this police helicopter.
Yeah.
When they saw this, in terms of where it is on the coast of Wales, so. This is South Wales. This is right on the coast down the bottom. Really close to a place called Barry. I mean, it's Barry, but you've got to say it with the Welsh accent.
Right on the southeast. It's actually an island, isn't it? Or
Barry is an island.
It's called Barry Island.
But it is very, very close to there. I mean, I think it's an island in the same way that the Isle of Dogs is an island.
More a peninsula.
I think so.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. I might be wrong.
Certainly connected by Britain. It's not far off the coast anyway, if it is an island. I went on holiday once there when I was a kid, when I was about 10.
Right.
We went to a Butlins holiday camp. Oh. And on the other side of the road from the holiday camp, there was a big fun fair. So that was, we had a nice week there.
A 10-year-old Neil would have been well happy with that, I would have thought.
Very happy with that, yeah.
So, yeah, in terms of big cities nearby, well, it's interesting. There are no big. I mean, there are big cities kind of nearby in the UK compared to America. There are always big cities nearby. But in fact, this is not far from Cardiff Airport, which is not in Cardiff, it's outside of Cardiff. But it's only 4 miles west of Cardiff Airport. And where we're saying it's on the coast, this is the bottom part goes over what is known as the Bristol Channel. Again, for our listeners. So basically, over the other side of the water, you've got Bristol, funnily enough, which is in England. And then Wales, being a different country, is north of the Bristol Channel. So it's the bit that comes in down the bottom of the UK. I'm trying to describe its location roughly for our international listeners.
Well, yeah, that bit that sticks out, the where you've got Devon and Cornwall and such.
On the west-hand side.
Starting with Bristol and then moving on the west coast. Yeah, that's southwest of Britain, that bit that juts out, and then on the north side of that.
Yes.
That channel, there's Wales.
But do you know what? Our listeners undoubtedly have access to Google Maps. So, yeah, if you Google St Athan, Athan, you will find where it is from that. So, yes, this police helicopter, and that, for me, makes this a particularly interesting case. We're not talking about a private pilot. We're not talking about someone inexperienced here. We are talking 3-man crew and a police helicopter who make this report of an unusual aircraft.
at 40 minutes past midnight.
I mean, most of our reports come from at least from military pilots, don't they? So
a lot do.
They tend to be people who's not noted for flights of fancy. They fly their planes, but they don't fly their fantasies very far. They tend to be very
absolutely, and even as
unimaginative. I think that's being unimaginative is a requirement for the job, isn't it?
You'd think so. Yeah. I mean, human nature being, but these are still human beings. Whatever opinions one might hold of the police, they are still human beings. So, and human beings are fallible. We recognise that, but three of them together, I think, is a less that's pretty credible in my view. Now, unfortunately, they weren't able to capture any imagery of it because it was there, then it wasn't. But the police themselves, when reporting this incident publicly or making this incident public, did describe the three-man crew as an experienced crew.
So wait a minute. They said that they swerved to this thing came flying towards them. They had to swerve to avoid it. Then they gave chase, as for instance a police car would do. If a police car had to swerve to avoid you crashing into them, they would give chase, wouldn't they? Because they would want a word with you about it. And they chased it as far as the Bristol Channel before they started running low on fuel and decided they had to turn back.
Well, here's where reports vary.
Not one of them could bring a camera to bear of any kind.
Well, no, this is where reports vary, because some reports do say, oh yes, it nearly hit them, they had to dodge out of the way. Some reports just say, well, it came close to them and passed by. Some reports say, yes, they set off in hot pursuit. Other reports just say, well, no, they just reported it.
So it also says, just to get the story straight, it says they spotted a flying saucer-shaped vehicle hurtling toward them from below. So it was coming straight up at them. Well, presumably it then changed direction, but it didn't continue going up. Otherwise, they would have been hard pressed. It wasn't something heading for orbit. It must have leveled off at an altitude where they could pursue it, although not actually get a camera to bear on it.
Well, this is where, unfortunately, I think the current name of this particular game is Telephone. I think that's what the kids call it. Back when we were kids, Neil, we'd have called it Chinese Whispers, but I can understand why that might not be an appropriate name anymore. But the game goes that, one person whispers something to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else and so on, to you get the end of the queue, and the original message is so garbled and so changed, it doesn't bear any resemblance to the beginning.
Well, there's that famous military communique, wasn't there, that started off as "send reinforcements, we're going to advance," and reached its destination as "send 3 and 4pence, we're going to a dance."
Yeah, that's kind of it. So, I'm intrigued by this account you've read that says a flying saucer shaped UFO. Well, hang on. Flying saucers, as we know from this podcast, come in many different shapes and sizes and flavours and colours. So which one?
Well, I'm thinking go for saucer shape.
Well, that's an interesting thing. So the whole term, the flying saucer, never described the shape in the first place. It described the skipping motion that it made as it flew, as if skipping a saucer across a lake.
But I think it's fair to say that a lot of people inferred the shape from that description.
You're thinking lay people.
Yes,
right.
People like myself.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's kind of what it's come to mean,
and the way it's been portrayed.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm looking at this story in a magazine called Wired, the online version, and it's got a picture of the 1950s day the Earth stood still flying saucer
Yes.
with the robot stood outside it. But that was, a disc-shaped what we come to recognise as a flying saucer-shaped saucer.
Yes. And well, I've not heard any formal official accounts from this story of any particular shape. Just
And although
literally, so the police described it as an unusual aircraft.
But an unusual aircraft, and also coming from below. So they were over an airport. Had it taken off from the airport? Did they find out?
Again, I've not heard that in the official report. That it came from below. I know it passed below them. But I've not heard that it came from below.
And how fast can a police helicopter go? Only helicopter.
That's an excellent question.
Couple of hundred knots, because obviously if this thing was flying past at, say, the speed of, well, something that was trying to achieve escape velocity to get to break out of the Earth's orbit, that wouldn't be something they would consider giving chase to. But obviously it was going slowly enough that they think, wait a minute, I want to work with these people. Let's get after them and pursue them.
Okay, it
wasn't just something that whizzed past and vanished within a couple of seconds.
They can cruise at 130 knots, which is about 150 mile per hour. So not that fast.
No,
not that fast.
So obviously this thing that they narrowly missed can't have been going much faster than that. If they would, I mean, if it was going at, say, twice that speed, the pilot would just say, well, don't bother, there's no way we're catching that.
Well, again, the official report says that they didn't make chase, that they just reported it.
Okay. Okay. What I'm reading is that they chased it until they ran out of fuel over the Bristol, the coast of the Bristol Channel. And this story appeared in a newspaper called the Daily Telegraph, which is obviously it has a political slant to it, very, very right wing. It used to be, I guess, a paper of record. It's now, I think, not much more trustworthy than the Mail or the Daily Express, and just as balmy in some of the stuff that prints.
Well, it's known as the Tory graph now, isn't it?
The Tory graph, yeah, but it's like your elderly Tory aunt who's gone senile and is now saying all kinds of reactionary right-wing nonsense.
Yes.
I think since Brexit, they kind of lost their marbles a bit.
Yes. And what does the Telegraph say about this report then? Because this is pre-Brexit, so maybe they were a bit more trustworthy at the time.
Well, the Telegraph is behind a paywall, with loads and loads and loads of pop-ups, so it's difficult to read it. But
okay.
The Wired is just reporting what the British Daily Telegraph newspaper reported, that they had a near miss with what they insist was an alien spacecraft, and then they chased it. Seriously. At least that's what Britain's Telegraph newspaper reports.
Well, I mean, this was at the time. It was widely reported throughout the media. I know the BBC covered it. Most of the daily newspapers ran articles on it. It is a theme amongst particularly the newspaper media. They'll embellish. They'll make stuff up to make a story sound more interesting, sound more exciting, because when you look at the BBC account, now I know they have their own slants and they're not entirely trustworthy, but theirs is a fairly sort of standard. Oh yes, these police pilots, they saw, or this crew, they saw something they couldn't explain. Here's when they saw it. Here's what they reported. And that's pretty much it. Whereas, yes, others are saying, oh, yes, and they gave chase over the Bristol Channel. Well, no, again, the official report is they observed it, basically it disappeared very quickly over the Bristol Channel.
According to the BBC report, the Ministry of Defence spokesperson said it had heard nothing about the incident, and then quoted, "But it is certainly not advisable for police helicopters to go chasing what they think are UFOs," the spokesperson said. But this thing must have been around for a bit, because there was a guy called George Witherington of St Mellons,
yes,
said he reported the sighting to police and was given an incident number. He's an ex-RAF glider pilot. Now,
sorry, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you. He reported an incident. It was a different one.
Well, that's one thing, because he said he spotted the object. It seems to be talking about the same story. Then it says he spotted the object at around 16:20 hours on the 8th of June. So this is 16 hours later, nearly.
This again, this is an example, and here the BBC are doing it, of conflating two stories together. If you read the article very, very carefully, there's no mention that it's the same object, just that, and on the same day, just up the road, by the way, that was in St Mellons, the George Witherington one, which is about 20 miles northeast of St Athan. Like I say, so it was in the afternoon later.
We're in the same
that
ballpark.
Day. Oh, yeah. I mean, within a reasonable distance. Yeah, he happened to see an object with a lot of lights. Doesn't say it's the same object. We've got, on one hand, the official description. All we've got is an unusual aircraft from George Witherington, an aircraft with a lot of light. That doesn't mean they're the same object. But you have to really read it carefully.
But it's really, that's the problem with stories like this, isn't it? It's got conflated. It's something the same day, or maybe it was the same thing.
Yeah.
It came back. I know that it describes him as an ex-RAF glider pilot.
Yes.
Well, even that's conflating things, isn't it? He used to be in the RAF, and he used to be a glider pilot. Not to the RAF doesn't have gliders,
doesn't it?
No, why would they have gliders?
For training purposes, maybe.
Well, yeah, you might be trained in a glider, but that'll be with a view to going to fly something else.
I don't know.
I mean, he might start in a glider, but he was just a glider pilot, was he? Didn't graduate beyond that.
Well, I don't know.
Or maybe he took part in the Normandy landings. Maybe he took part in the Normandy landings when gliders were used to land troops in France.
There you go.
Maybe he really was. He said he was a pensioner. I mean, although he'd be getting on a bit, wouldn't he, if he was a World War II veteran?
In 2008, yes, that would be... so we really have to be so careful about how we read these articles, and this illustrates the point perfectly. Even the BBC, which is quite, it's portraying this picture quite coldly, with seemingly bare facts, and still it's not actually conflating, because when you read it really carefully, it does make it sort of clear that it's two separate things, but it implies
it doesn't really, because then it talks about this guy Richard Foxwell, and then it goes back to the helicopter crew.
Yes, the author.
And then, so it's all interwoven. It's not like going from incident to incident. It is.
That's the author who had a different UFO encounter in a different part of Wales in the 1990s. I think it was the 1990s. Foxwell. He wrote a book about it anyway.
Yeah, he wrote a book about it.
Completely different incident, but they're citing him. Why are they citing him if he's not connected with this whatsoever? Which he's not. He didn't see it. He wasn't there.
No. It's a garbled story, really, in the fact that the Daily Telegraph was the primary source.
It really is, and as much as like the bare bones of the story, the absolute facts as we know them, which is very simply police helicopter saw an unusual craft at 0:40 hours near Cardiff in South Wales. But it's a police helicopter. I find that quite interesting. The fact that they have reported this is in of itself quite interesting. But when you go into these media reports, they make such a big... It's like, well, that wouldn't be interesting enough, so we've got to make it exotic. Well, that... I'm going to go on my own little rant now, because that does ufology a massive disservice, because all it allows is the debunkers and the naysayers to point out inconsistencies and say, "Ha, look, it's all made up." And maybe that's by design. Maybe the way these things are reported is so that it can be easily debunked. That's a bit conspiracy theory, I know, but
I can imagine the story wasn't written by a ufologist. It was written by someone who's, oh God, what am I going to write about? And how can I fill this article? How can I pad this article out to 1,000 words or whatever it needs to be? 500 words.
It's written by a person with an agenda. Now, whether that agenda is disinformation, whether that agenda is to make an exciting article, whether that agenda is to pad it out because they're editors, but the editor will be guiding that person and influencing their agenda. And who influences the editor's agenda?
The owner.
And who influences their agenda?
Nobody. They're on to their media moguls.
Well, they usually work hand in hand with the government.
Only because they can tell the government what to do.
Yeah. But there are going to be quid pro quos as part of that.
Yeah. If you want to win the next election, you better do this or that or the other. No, I can see. Yeah, bad journalism comes about because someone's just told, we've had this report, check it out, give us 200 words or 500 words, pad it out a bit with something else. Okay, well, I found some other reports of UFOs in the area. Yeah, okay, let's all weave it all together. And by the time you've edited it all, you can't tell one from the other.
Absolutely. And you know what? I can remember the day, and I'm sure you can, when journalistic integrity meant something. It was a meaningful statement where
I think that was a bit before my time, mate.
Well, I can remember kind of compared to how things are today. You read something in the paper. Okay, you would expect kind of a political leaning left or right, but ultimately things that were stated as fact, you could expect them to be pretty much fact. Go back 30 years, 40 years.
I think it depends on what they're reporting. And again, it's going to be their agenda, isn't it? But I think UFO sightings will always be either sensationalist or dismissive or weirdly obsessive.
But I think we're moving into a change now in the current climate where, you've got the US government putting out yearly reports on UAPs and what have you. I think we are shifting into the more credible age with ufology. But and certainly this UFO report from the police helicopter might be seen. I think we see it now differently through today's lens than we would have done 15 years ago when it happened. 15 years ago, it's like, oh, look, even the police are seeing little green men. Isn't it amusing? Isn't it a nice little peccadillo of a story there? Whereas now, if it was reported, I think things would be extremely different. I think it'd be taken far more seriously.
There are an awful lot of gaps in this story. They don't seem to have determined if it came from below them, if it was taking off from somewhere, where it had taken off from. they don't really seem to have got a fix on where it was going. They certainly didn't call any kind of control tower, any ground support. We've got this unidentified craft. It needs tracking. It hasn't triggered any Britain's air defences.
Well, it passed below them. It didn't. Nowhere official does it say it came up below them.
Well, it says in the Wired. I think it was the Wired story.
Nowhere official.
Nowhere official. But I don't think there is anywhere official. It was reported in the Daily Telegraph. Came hurtling toward them from below. So does that mean it was taking off from somewhere, or was it just flying lower and then suddenly decided to increase altitude, not really caring or knowing that there was a helicopter above them? But no one in the helicopters in said, okay, we've just had a near miss with this unidentified craft. They're not responding to any attempt at, well, it doesn't say whether they attempted to make radio contact with them.
There was no attempt made.
Which I would have thought, I would have thought if you were in an aircraft and you narrowly missed a police helicopter, you would hear them on the radio saying, turn around and land at Cardiff Airport.
Well, the crew at the time
we want to work with you.
Were in constant contact with the control tower at the RAF base because they were waiting to land, basically.
But there don't seem to be any air defences triggered. No one's saying. Nope. I mean, did they say that they saw it from the base? Did they say, yeah, we can see that thing you're talking about?
No report.
I'd say, yeah.
No report from the base whatsoever.
Yeah. And then again, even in the Wired story, it starts mixing up different UFO sightings. Mm-hmm. They all get mixed and mingled, and
yeah.
I think you can make a story out of lots and lots, take a few non-stories, weave them together, and you've got something a bit more substantial.
A bit more substantial, but also something way more easy to debunk.
Yeah.
Like I say, it didn't come up at them from below, it passed below them. And that's a very different... And it's also worth bearing in mind what a near miss means in aviation terms. We're not talking like a couple of feet. A near miss is like coming within, I think is it 50 metres or...
Well, if you're talking airliners, it's a couple of miles.
Yeah.
Can be a near miss. I imagine with smaller aircraft, with helicopters and light aircraft, they can get a bit closer before they decide whether that was a near miss.
Yes, I would have thought so, and certainly at lower altitudes and things like that. But yeah, I've seen, like I said, with the airliners, I've been on a plane that had a near miss, and the other aircraft was like this tiny little blob in the background. Nobody would really call that a near miss. But of course, these things travel at such high speed that it can. It can go from a tiny blob to suddenly in your face very, very quickly. But yeah, there we go. Anyway, I think this is an interesting story for two purposes. Like I say, the fact that the police crew have reported this gives it some credibility in my view. And okay, well, there isn't much in the way of detail, but that's fine. I think it's just another thing to add to the list of credible encounters. But more so, yeah, and we've kind of illustrated this perfectly. The way the media reports, you've really, I think with any UFO report that you read in the media, you've really got your work cut out to get to what actually happened.
On that day, that time, that one time.
Yeah.
Not conflated with any other.
Absolutely. And now
But I think we've even come... Well, we did do a story a while back, didn't we, where two stories were conflated because there were two things going on at the same time, or more a similar kind of time.
We did.
The lights in the sky over... Where was it, over Phoenix? Or is it the Phoenix lights or something like that? I think it was
the second lot of Phoenix lights. Yes, because there have been multiple Phoenix lights. That's it. I know it's something. It has come up as a theme before in other things as well.
But you would think, ever since World War II, when there were lots of planes buzzing over Britain, hostile aircraft flying over Britain, that they would have been able to track and differentiate between them. That this is the plane that did that. This is the plane that's heading in that direction. That's, let's not get them all mixed up.
Yeah,
we can focus on each individual. Maybe they can't. Maybe I'm overestimating their abilities.
Maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, no, I can see a dark mythology behind it, like I say, in terms of making these things debunkable quite easily.
But I can also just see bad journalism, not very interested, don't believe in these things. Oh, okay, you want 200 words? Okay, I'll just dig something else. I'll ask the coppers involved, and then I'll fill it in with a bit of stuff we've reported before, and boom, job done. I'll go home.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's ask our listeners what they think. So do let us know whether you think there is a conspiracy theory behind it all, or if it is just lazy journalism, as Neil says. Maybe even a bit of both. Who knows? But do let us know what you think about this story and all our stories that we share on the show here. You can contact us via the usual means, of course, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, all by searching Aliens Explored. You can email us aliensexplored@gmail.com, or of course you can join our Patreon program, patreon.com/Aliens Explored. Pick a tier that suits you and you will get access to our exclusive Discord server. So you don't want to, you might want to check that out. Join us next time, though. Oh, I'm very excited for our next episode. I'm always excited for our episodes. I'm particularly excited.
You never stop being excited. You're a very excitable kind of guy.
Well, do you know what? It's a topic I'm amazed we haven't discussed it in depth before. But here we are. We're going to be discussing it. We are going to be talking about the Men in Black, not the 97 movie, but the actual Men in Black themselves. Oh, and it's going to be a good one. I expect we'll be getting quite heated, Neil.
Okay, I'll try and keep calm.
Keep calm and carry on. In the meantime, listeners, do keep watching those media reports for UFO articles, but take them with a bit of salt, pinch of salt, perhaps. And of course, keep watching those skies. Take care for now.
Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit us on aliensexplored.com.